Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So today's session is all about the new ecosystem partnership that we have between IP Fabric and Infoblox, which we're all very excited about. Like we promised, it will be mostly a demo-heavy webinar, but we're going to provide a bit of context here in the beginning. So with NetMRI approaching the end of life, we think it's the right moment to rethink what your technology stack can do, your network technology stack can do, and really what it should do. We're thinking here about how you can modernize your entire infrastructure using solutions that your friends maybe in DevOps and platform engineering and cloud and security and other domains are maybe already using so that we can have more consistency throughout the entire infrastructure. So we'll be talking about how Infoblox and IP Fabric are partnering to help you move beyond a one-to-one replacement of NetMRI and toward a more powerful integrated solution for visibility, for compliance, for things like automation readiness. But before we jump in, I'd love to have my co-presenters introduce themselves. Ken, let's go ahead and start with you as our guest from Infoblox.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. I'm Ken Lancaster, and I am in charge of the ecosystem program we have with technology integrations, if you will, with our networking products like NIOS.
Awesome, thank you, Ken. And Seb, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. So yeah, Sebastian Argov, I'm a solution architect lead for IP Fabric. I've been working there for 4 years, and I've been working with a number of integration and helping customers using the platform.
Now, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions in the Q&A panel. We do have another one of our brilliant engineers answering questions live for you all. So if you have any questions throughout, please just go ahead and ask. Zach, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach, and I'm a solutions architect here on the IP Fabric team here in the Americas. Relatively new to the team, rounding out my second month, but really excited to be a part of the team and learning this technology, this platform, and excited to be with you today. So thank you for your time and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Zach. Okay, so I say we just dive in. That way we get to the demo a little bit faster. But first of all, Ken, I think we promised everyone we jump into more details from Infoblox about the end of life information, but then also the exciting things that you all have planned. So I think we better just start there if you'll kindly take it away.
Absolutely. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know Infoblox, we've been in this space we call DDI, which is DNS, DHCP, and IP address management, IPAM, which is critical for any network. That you have. Those are the key components that you have to have. And Infoblox has been doing this for about 25 years now. So we're a pretty large player in this space called DDI. And we're finding that DDI is becoming really critical in the security posture of an enterprise of your network, because we're actually looking out at everything that's touching your network, and we have great visibility into domain names and IP addresses and things of that nature that you have to function. And it happens to be an area where cyber attacks can begin. So it's becoming critical in this space to leverage what we do in our DNS DDI area to improve the security posture of our enterprise and our government customers. And so with that, last year we launched a new product called Universal Asset Insights. And what that does is we're focusing now on multi-cloud visibility, the ability to see everything touching your network on-prem or in public cloud A, B, or C, the ability to just have automatic discovery of every asset touching your network, which is critical to improve your security posture, if you will, of what's out there and what's touching your network. And it does things like identify zombie assets, things that haven't been used or haven't been used in months, weeks, or years to help you save cost as well. But mostly it's about improving the visibility of your network. And so this has been a very popular product launched last year. And with that focus on what I'd say integrations, bidirectional integrations with security partners, firewalls, SIM, SOAR, XDR, a lot of that focus has led us away from configuration management, or what you may call NCCM. Hence, we've announced an end of life of a NetMRI product. But not to leave anyone hanging, we've gone out and validated, tested, and certified what I call alternatives, such as IP Fabric. And they've done a lot of work doing an integration into NIOS to make it almost seamless for you to get the functionality that you've been used to for years with their platform, which is more than just an NCCM platform. It does a lot more, which is why we're here to go into a demo of just a few things that it does. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lauren.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. It's been great working with you for the past several months, and we really are so excited about this partnership with Infoblox, right? We know you're the market leader in DDI, DNS, DHCP, and IPAM. For those who aren't DDI engineers, I spent my last 4 years in DDI, so it's near and dear to my heart. But what I love about DDI is that it really is foundational for not only the network, right, but for the revenue generating applications that run on top of the network. And I think this is, something that we have in common, is really kind of focusing on the foundation, making sure it's running correctly, because we all know about that garbage in, garbage out problem, especially in networking, especially as we start talking more about net DevOps and networking automation and AI as well. I got to get that buzzword in at some point during this webinar. So IP Fabric, just to kind of level set for everyone, is a network assurance tool. So we map and model your entire multi-vendor network in the cloud, on-prem, regardless of data center, campus branch. It truly is end-to-end. We're an appliance that you deploy on your network. We don't require any agents or anything like that to do our discovery. And we kind of discover your network the same way that a network engineer would, but faster maybe and more comprehensively, right? We let the machines talk to the machines. Now, I want to stop here and take a quick poll before I go on, if I can prepare our person who's in charge of all the logistical things here. Maddie, yeah, we want to know how many of you actually trust your current network source of truth, right? So this includes CMDBs, Visio diagrams, documentation. We won't be able to see who you are, so please feel free to answer honestly. But I'd love to see what you all are thinking about your current, the buzzword source of truth and all of that. And right now it's showing very much as I expected. We'll just give it a few more seconds to let folks answer. And I'll just tell you, I honestly don't know if you all can see it, but I'll share the results in just a second. It's about what I expected, in that no one trusts it fully. And we're seeing a lot of, it's good enough. And then we're seeing a few, it's pretty outdated. Okay. We will share those poll results in just a moment. There we go. Okay, so that's exactly what I expected, right? So to tell you a little bit more about IP Fabric and how we do our discovery and all of that, so we provide full picture snapshots after running a uniquely accurate and quick discovery that doesn't rely on protocols like SNMP, for example, right? We know SNMP is going to be riddled with problems. And in fact, the reason why I knew the poll was going to come out the way it did is because in 8 out of our 10, 80% of our proof of concepts that we run with prospects, we actually find things like missing devices, incorrect information in CMDBs and other sources of truth, right? Due to these inaccurate protocols that actually just weren't meant for discovery in the first place, right? Our discovery also doesn't have to run overnight, right? Like some of our competitors, I'll just say it, wink, wink. And you can actually take even incremental snapshots. If you just are looking at maybe a troublesome segment of your network, those can happen in seconds. So it is a point in time snapshot, but at most maybe 45 minutes to run a full discovery, and then just a few seconds to do those incremental snapshots. And then we build tables using our proprietary parsers. That's kind of the real magic behind what we do, right? And these give you information on literally every point in your network, and not just about the devices, right? But the things in between the devices. What protocols are we using between the routers and the switches and the firewalls? You get all of that behavioral information, again, from an end-to-end perspective. And then from those tables, we create a network simulation. And we use over 160 built-in intent checks to make sure your network, cloud, and security environments are running as they should be. Now, this is all out of the box, right? There's no extra licensing. You don't have to buy extra seats or any of that. We want your entire IT organization to have the same views within reason, of course. Of course, we still, provide role-based access control and all of that good stuff. We also offer the capability to create your own intent checks, right? Custom intent checks. Again, no extra licensing or seats required. And these just use logic to create, right? You don't have to learn code or learn a new query language or learn some new version of, low code, no code that's almost as difficult as learning how to code itself. Now, if we'll just advance the slides here real quick, regarding the technology integration, which is a real integration, by the way, just like Ken said. We're not just talking about what's possible through the APIs. We can sync with Infoblox and NIOS, right? Their IPAM solution, and ensure the accuracy of network, cloud, security devices, and all of those good things, right? And the actual behavior of those things and how they're expected to behave. So we're not a monitoring solution, right? We've taken it a step further to allow, with Infoblox, the capability to do a dry run. So you can see what's about to happen before you sync with production, right? Kind of a what if scenario. And like I said, Seb's going to show you all of this in just a few seconds here. So Seb, I think that people probably want to see it in action now. Can you start by showing us what's possible with the new integration? Then we can kind of jump to the other things that IP Fabric can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start sharing that screen, making sure it works for everyone. Okay, you should normally see my screen where I'm showing the interface of Infoblox. Cool. All right, so I guess to start with what we're about to do, so I'm going to start with IP Fabric. So what IP Fabric has done is, as we've explained, is we're going to discover the network, extract the information, and represent it in a table format, the topology. We're going to see some of those later. Related to the Infoblox integration, the key thing, what we want to extract from the network and compare and make the diff to then update Infoblox is what we're going to see in that table, the managed IP. The idea is you've got a number of networks that are going to be configured on those network devices. And that's what you're seeing in here, where we've got a summary, where we've got a number of sites, where what are the networks that we've seen in here. And then you can actually deep dive to find more information about specific subnet, where are the devices which have an interface within that subnet. So this is what we're seeing in this snapshot of IP Fabric, and the snapshot is a picture of that network at a specific moment in time. So now in this scenario, what we wanted to show is to say we've got two snapshots, one where it's the state before, maybe a big change. So in that situation, we're having new devices that are going to be added after the change maintenance. And the idea is let's use the integration, because what we want to do is after the change is making sure that whatever is on the network, we're going to be able to reflect and see it in Infoblox. So now I'm not going to go much more into IP Fabric right now. The idea is how do we configure it, how does it work, and how do we synchronize? So in IP Fabric, you've got, we've added recently the capability of having those extensions, and this is what we're going to use now to do the integration. So once you start this synchronization tool, you only have to configure, so the config file, there is the documentation on what you need to do, but you can use the default one that we provide. Then you just need to provide the information regarding IP Fabric token so that we can talk to the API, similar to the Infoblox side. And then what we're going to do is just do the dry run mode, where I just want to do the comparison. What do I have seen in my network in IP Fabric? And what is there anything that's missing in Infoblox? So once you start the process, what's behind the scene is we're extracting that managed IP table. Some other information also are going to be there, and we compare that with Infoblox. So now you can see I've got different menus that have appeared. The first one is the networks that we want to create. So in here, you've got a number of those subnets, which are subnets that have been added after we've done the change on the network. So those are new devices, they came with different subnets, and those were not present in Infoblox. So that's the first thing. We want to make sure that this is going to be updated. From a logging perspective, you also have a lot more information of what do we have already, things that is already present. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And then you've got the full logs, which is the one that really go through the details of the diff that we've done and the information, like is there something that's already in Infoblox or not? And you can see, for example, this one is the one where from the settings that we've put in place, we've decided to ignore the /32. We only want to look at a subnet when it's 31 or smaller. So that's from the dry run. And now obviously what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going to enable the sync, because those subnets that I've seen but are not there present yet, I want to add them. So I'm going to start the process. The moment I'm doing that, I can see that this is running at the moment, which is good. So what it allows me to do is I'm going to jump in here. The synchronization happens in two phases. The first one is to add the network. So this one normally happens pretty quickly. So I think if I start typing this, I might even be able to say it. Yes, so I know those subnets are some that were present in IP Fabric, but not in Infoblox. So they've been recently added. And then what will go is, but for that we'll have to wait a few more minutes, is when you have the metadata. And that's going to be the part which is important, because right now I'm only showing a subnet, which is good. It's been added to Infoblox, but what I want is have more information about what is that, what's behind this, who's the device that has the information about a specific subnet. So if I click in this one, I think that was one of the examples I wanted to show you. We can see that now the information is starting to appear. I think that was one of the examples I wanted to show, that .38, for example, and we'll show as well in IP Fabric how it looks. But now you can see that this is based on the snapshot time when we ran the discovery, the device where we found that IP which has been configured. So now all that information taken from IP Fabric is available in Infoblox. So you've got an up-to-date source of truth from an IPAM perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sub. So basically we just saw you do the dry run and then the production run, if you will. And we did have a question that asked about, what actually enables it to be in production. And that was when you clicked on enable sync, right? And the enable logging tick box is literally just so we can see the logging and what's failed and what hasn't, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the logging, you can run as many times as you want. We're only just going to diff between the latest snapshot of IP Fabric, because that's the one I've used there by default, and what you have currently in Infoblox. The moment you're happy with what you've seen in here, you enable the sync, and this is where we'll take the data as you've seen previously in the network to create, and we're going to add those network devices into Infoblox. So sorry, the subnet into Infoblox, including the information that we've got in this one, which is going to be used for the metadata. So the one I was just showing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that metadata is so helpful too when you're, trying to search for things and make sure things are up to date and get that information. So after then, we know that things have changed. We've figured that out. Things got added to Infoblox, but tell us more about where IP Fabric actually gets this data. How do we know that there is new information?
Yeah, I'll show that now. So yeah, so let's look back, and I'm going to start from a diagram. People love having a diagram. It helps. Sometimes picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay, so I'm going to start with a network diagram that IP Fabric has built from the moment after the change. So now I've got network information showing me the state of my network. How are the relationship between devices? What do we have connected? But what I want to do first is I want to compare with the state that I had previously. So if I do it this way around, where I can say, okay, that's my latest snapshot, I want to compare with the previous one. And now everything that I'm going to see in red are things that were present before and have been removed. So I can see, so I've said it the wrong way around. So things are things that we see now in the latest snapshot, but we do not have them in the latest, in the previous snapshot. So now if I look at this, I can see that devices in here were not present. Those are the devices that we've added as well as part of the change. So now if I remove the comparison and really just focus on this one, this is my state of the network after the change. And I can see the similar one before. So I can easily compare the before and after from a topology perspective, which means if I'm an engineer and I'm about to troubleshoot a problem, I don't have to look at an outdated documentation where information is going to be inaccurate, and I may not know what has been changed in the network within the last 24 hours, or sometimes network changes a lot. So you just have to go 1 week on holiday, you come back and you've got no idea what's up to date or not.
Yeah. I mean, that is the first question we ask, right? When something goes wrong, well, what was most recently changed? And then we usually find our answer there. So if there's a change in IPAM and things get updated, right? And we've shown kind of how that can all work. But let's say we do all of these changes and we sync with Infoblox, can we somehow tell that, traffic has been impacted and has it been impacted negatively or positively? Can we make sure that everything is running as it should be?
Yeah, so that's the next question, I guess. Obviously, from a topology perspective, I can see the example I'm going to use is between the site 1 here and the site 2, where I'm adding devices there because I'm going to build new service and I want users in here to be able to access the services that I'm going to apply there. So what we can do is use the path lookup, where what we're going to do is I want to have to try to enable, so the service we're deploying is going to be some SSH application. But what I'm seeing right now, so before the change, is obviously I'm not able to reach the destination. There's going to be 2 reasons for that. The first one is here I can see I'm hitting a firewall, which is dropping that specific flow, what I can do is enable disable the security just to see what's behind this firewall. And now what I'm seeing is I'm getting to a device, another firewall, but this one doesn't have any routing to go to the destination because the network is not ready on that side. So now after the change, so now this is the part that I want to look at, is I've done the change, I'm coming the next day, but what I'm seeing in here is I'm able to reach the destination, but from a firewall perspective, the security is still blocking it. So now if my goal was to enable that service, I failed because I don't have the connectivity between the source and the destination. And this is what we want to bring the visibility for, where quickly you can identify what's been going on in that network. But then you may be in a situation where, if I just use this example, where maybe my colleague is able to access this. And now you can see that for that specific source, now I can see that both firewall are green. So now maybe there is a problem, it's not really with the network itself, but it's helping me as the person is going to troubleshoot this issue to have all the information that I need to be able to say, is it allowed or not? Or is it just a problem between the user and his local computer, for example, rather than a network-wide issue?
Yeah, that's a very diplomatic way of putting it. Yeah, I love the end-to-end path lookup. I think that's so important, and not to mention, we have the ability to integrate with ServiceNow so that you can, automatically enrich your tickets with this information. So let's say you're the network engineer and you want to send this to your security person who maybe handles the firewall rules of the ACLs. You can easily get them that information. So we know things get forgotten. We've seen changes happen. We've seen where maybe routes change and all of that. How do we know what else is falling out of configuration very easily using IP Fabric?
So the famous compliance question, is my network behaving the way it should? And I guess the first one I want to show is potentially this one, where you could have a compliance from a flow perspective, where in here I want to ensure that none of my specific subnet in here, and that should have been updated to this on port 80. For example, you want to make sure that none of your user in one specific site can access to anything on port 80. And from a path lookup perspective, we're able to say more than just between IPs, but between the whole subnet to say, show me, and if anything is allowed by that firewall, you'll be able to see between that source and destination. So that's one of the compliance checks that we can perform, is to be able to say, I want this path to fail. And if it doesn't fail, that's going to raise one of the compliance warning that we're going to highlight in the dashboard, which I'm going to jump straight away. So now the dashboard, and I'll just change the snapshot just to show something with a little bit more data to it. But this is where, once you've captured the network, you want to be able to show what's potentially wrong from a compliance perspective. And the example I'm going to show is a simple one, but one that we see a lot is putting a new rule from a compliance perspective. You're going to check on one day, are all my devices, have I disabled telnet everywhere? You might be able to say yes on one specific moment in time, but the problem is 6 months later, you don't know if that's still correct or not. And that's how do you regularly check so that you know that you're compliant with whatever. I've got also another dashboard in here, for example, like a NIST dashboard that you can get the intent check that you want, that would say, show me every time I've got a new device which has telnet enabled, I want to be able to see it quickly in that dashboard so that you can take the necessary actions to fix it.
So tell us more about this extra dashboard you have. It looks like you can create your own for kind of whatever purpose that you want.
Yeah, and absolutely. So again, this is a fairly new feature as well that we've added, where we wanted to be able to bring that more flexible view, where the initial dashboard contains all the intent rules that we have, but then depending on the team using it, they might not be interested by the same data. Some, if you're more of a high level, you just want to see, or from a compliance perspective, you just want to see, is my AAA, my telnet, and whatever the checks required for the compliance you're trying to ensure that you're fulfilling correctly. You can create easily that dashboard so that it makes sense to the person looking at it, and you maybe don't want the one that's going to be more network focused to see if you've got any mismatch in your trunks, MTU issues, or all those different checks that you may see in a global dashboard.
Well, this is awesome, Seb. And, we know IP Fabric, we could go on and on for hours kind of showing all of the things that are possible. So I think we showed, kind of the three major things, especially as it relates to, this idea of not only replacing NetMRI, but kind of taking it a step further. I do want to move on to questions, and we do have quite a few that I see in the Q&A. But before I do, I want to just run one last poll, give folks an opportunity to ask more questions. We just want to know about, what are you and your teams, right? So your DevOps, your security, your compute virtualization teams. Is everyone using already using something, right? Okay, and then while that runs, and we will share those results in just a minute or two. I know we're coming to the end, but I do want to get to a few of the questions. One thing that I think it's really important that we cover, Seb, is this idea of, does IP Fabric push config changes? So if you want to take a crack at that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, so no, IP Fabric is a read-only platform. We don't push the configuration, but we are helping you collecting the information that you need in order to know what needs to be pushed.
Yeah. So I think, go ahead, please.
No. I was just going to say, sometimes I like to say is the pushing the configuration is not necessarily the hard part, is knowing what to push and where.
Yeah, I think this is so important. So I do want to let everyone know we offer a free trial, and one reason why people are so hesitant to try free trials is because you do push configs. But since we don't, it's a fairly safe solution to run in your free trial. Now, the other thing I want to mention here is, while we don't push configs in the way that a traditional NCCM would, what we think is important is actually using the tools that are already in your technology stack, right? Bringing them to full potential. So why would you buy, a specific network automation tool, network config push tool, when you're already maybe using Ansible or Terraform or itential or one of the other automation solutions? Seb, I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
No, I think this is, I guess, yes, it's what the data we provide is easily accessible via API. So then if you want to build an integration that's going to, where you want to integrate with what you've developed already from an Ansible perspective, if I take this one as an example, is you just have to change the way you approach it. Is where we provide the data from the network. You know what to push. You can use that Ansible playbook you already have to make that change. And then what IP Fabric will do is perform the new discovery of the network and update the state to be able to quickly check has your change been executed the way you want it to, or has it been something unexpected?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to point out, being able to validate those changes and doing that closed loop automation. Not to mention that workflows are not just about the network, right? Workflows often include security, networking, compute, all of the above, storage even. So I know we're at time here. Maddie, can we show the results to the poll? Maybe. There we go. Okay. No, that's awesome. And around what we expect. And thank you everyone for answering the poll. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions, but we will reach out if that's okay with you all, or you can definitely reach out to us. I'm Lauren.Malhoy at ipfabric.io, and we can get all of your questions answered. And then, of course, you can always reach out to sales at ipfabric.io. And if you go to our website, ipfabric.io, there is a link to either do a guided demo or a full-on free trial. So depending on if you just want to see how a few workflows work, you can try the guided demo out. You can download the free trial. It's the full product for 30 days for up to 100 devices. So we've kind of limited the scope there with the free trial. But obviously we cover large complex networks mostly. So 1,000 or more devices, generally speaking. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I want to thank Seb and Ken and Zach, and of course, Maddie for running all of this. And please reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.